Hi, it's Josh, and the rain has finally stopped, all 2 days worth of it. Southern California, got to get rain at least once a year kind of thing. And so I thought I'd go out in the car and just drive around a little bit. So let's go somewhere. Because I haven't been in my car for a couple weeks. Okay, what's going on? Well, I'm glad I'm recording this because something's not right. Okay. So we're going to turn the car off. And we're going to wait. Well, these are the kinds of things that occasionally the Grenadier will do. I've never experienced this before, and I just so happened to turn the cameras on before we were going to go out. And so let's see if we can clear it. We're going to start the car again. Because something made it mad. Got my seatbelt on. Parking brake is on. Who knows? Who knows? But I've recorded it now. And I'll quirk. It's a quirk, but it's never happened to me before. So I don't know if it didn't have the key seated properly and it thought something shady was up, but the screen didn't come on like it normally does. I've had a couple of one-off situations where one time the CarPlay just wouldn't reconnect, and then the head unit just sort of froze and it needed a reboot. It was like a temperamental computer. But it got to the point where it picked a radio station, wasn't in English even, and I couldn't turn the volume up or down. It just wasn't taking any input. And it's interesting considering the INEOS says we have fewer computers in this car, yet this whole thing is still a computer. It's not mechanical. The switches are not connected directly. They're electronic switches. And so it's not prone to lots of problems, but it's not immune from them either. It's just there's fewer opportunities for it to go wrong. Now, if I were out in the outback with the Grenadier versus like a Land Rover Defender, I'd probably be more comfortable being in the Grenadier, mainly because if something electronic went wrong, the car would probably still be running. It might make those noises that we just heard, but it probably would still, the car was still running and it was still probably drivable. Because I've heard instances where dead batteries, even with a jump start, require computers to be reset on Land Rovers, and things that kind of can be bricked if you're not careful. So anyway, we're gonna go for a little drive. So thanks for watching that. Boy. Okay, so as I was saying, we're out, it's sunny. And we're gonna just get a little drive. So it's interesting, my car says that I am 6 days overdue for service, and of course there's a reminder that's been going on for about a month saying service in 30 days, service in 29 days. And of course I'm thinking, well, I talked to my dealer about this, the service manager, and said, when should I bring my car in for service? I mean, I only have less than 3,000 miles on the car because I'm not a frequent driver. And so he said once a year is fine, because either you can do a 6-month cycle or a 12-month cycle. So we discussed me probably being suitable for the 12-month cycle. And here we are at 7 months and my car's like, I need service. So I sent him an email and he basically said, "Happy birthday. Your Grenadier rolled off the factory line 1 year ago, and that service indicator kicked off on that day, as opposed to on the day that I bought the car. So he said, you can come in, we'll reset it, or you can come in and have an oil change if you want, but it's, not really necessary, and we'll see it at the 1 year. So just in case you happen to see that, just know that it's a birthday indicator for the factory of your Grenadier, and that on that first occasion, that's going to be one of those things that you probably will want to discuss in advance with your dealers, so that, because I have heard of people having to pay to have their indicator reset. Not all dealers are the same, and so just something to be aware of, because it bongs. It's an extra bong every time you get in the car and you turn it on. It bongs and says, service 6 days ago, overdue. Actually, and that's just it. The only thing I fault the Grenadier for is the manner in which it tells you stuff makes you think you've done something wrong, and you haven't necessarily done anything wrong, but you see these warning lights and you're like, what did I do? What's broken? What's wrong? I need to fix it. And that could be the AEB not working, or the camera being obstructed. It comes across like it's a critical mass failure, and it's not. So, I would fault the Grenadier for being a little pushy at telling you stuff, because it could sit here and tell me that the service is due or overdue, but it doesn't need to bong every time I turn the car on. And likewise, the overspeed warning, it can tell me and flash and say, you're going faster than the posted speed limit, and that's fine. But it's the tick, tick, tick that is not fine. And so it's the implementation of these things that bother me more than the feature themselves, because all new cars currently have these features. It's a 2024 phenomenon that you're going to get an overspeed warning of some sort in a car. So even if you're just looking at the Grenadier and you're like, oh, this is so annoying, other manufacturers have the same feature. Now, I've seen some really cool implementations for how to silence those features, where like you just hold a button on the steering wheel and poof, it silences the warnings. That's the kind of stuff that they need to kind of look into, because it's unnecessary. I appreciate the fact that it has such things, but I can be in the Costco parking lot, which apparently has a 5 mile an hour posted speed limit, and just when I'm leaving the parking lot, the tick tick goes off because I'm going over 5 miles an hour. I might be going 6, but I get a warning, and so it's excessive. We've talked about this a lot, and I've heard when I talked to my dealer about the service indicator, he did say that the software update that we've all been waiting for is scheduled to come out sometime this quarter. So I'm sure I will be, quick to find out when it's available, and I will share that with everybody and what's required. I just originally felt like if they've waited so long, they're probably going to wait until people have an annual service, because they don't want all these extra cars coming in for this software update, because it's one of those things that it's nice to have, but it's not a critical failure thing. It depends on how you look at it. But I think that might be part of the plan, is that it's taken this long, and it makes more sense for us to do it when somebody brings it in for their first annual service, and then it's just an extra thing we do. Just wouldn't be surprised if there's some logic in that. But anyway, I'll be sure to report it as soon as I hear, because I don't care for it. Can't wait to see it go away. It's just a nit. It's something that just shouldn't be the way it is. But again, okay, so obviously whatever was going on, okay, hold on. another thing I've learned is sometimes, because I'm running errands, if you turn it off and you get out and you turn the car off and then you go and you come back to the car within a certain number of minutes, the setting is still off. It doesn't re-engage immediately. And so I thought it probably was that, but it, clearly wasn't, and it had enough time to reset. So sometimes you get lucky and it stays off, but there's no rhyme or reason to why. So anyway, another day in the Grenadier. I love it. And people, even while I was talking to you when the car was bonging, somebody was checking it out from behind. And I knew if I stepped out of the car to check the doors to make sure they were all shut, because I knew they were shut, that I would have gotten pulled into a conversation. And, that's maybe it could be a liability, because people like to ask questions, and people aren't bashful about asking questions, because it's not it's not the kind of vehicle that scares people off. I think that I've seen people with Cybertrucks get love and hate, and in equal amounts, because it's a fascinating car, truck, whatever it is, but it's a polarizing thing. Whereas this is just kind of a cool retro vibe, and people are curious because they've never seen one. They either think it's a Land Rover, a resto mod, or an electric vehicle that, they just have questions, and they're curious, and they like it. So it's always good vibes that you get when you're out driving your Grenadier. I've never had anything negative. And, the worst thing somebody could diss you for is that it uses gas. And so, and that kind of is what it is. Don't buy this car for gas mileage. Don't buy this car for the gas mileage. It's good for everything else it does except the gas mileage. But you knew that if you bought a Grenadier. So, the people in the other countries with the diesels, bless you. But in America, we just don't have that option. And I understand it's a little bit better, but we get what we get here. So anyway, my service indicator, I'm kind of building a list of things that I want to address with my dealer when I go in, and most of them are things that I think I'm going to be told that this is kind of how it's designed and how it's operating as it should. But I'll still ask the questions because I get them a lot in comments from viewers. And it has to do with the noise that the power steering pump makes. It's kind of a whiny squeak. The HVAC is a little finicky. It sometimes is temperamental or moody and doesn't want to blow hot if you ask for heat. And then the next time you get in the car, all heat. So it's a little funky. But nothing that I've had happen to this car has required me to go in for an emergency service. And I remember it kind of impressed on me that when I was talking with the service manager, he is yet to have a Grenadier come in on a flatbed. It's like every car comes in on its own power, and yes, they have things to address, and yes, there are service bulletins for different fixes, and I'm diving into that too to kind of see the state of recalls and so forth, because there's been 2 recalls. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a different video. But comparatively, it's really low. And for a brand new vehicle, it's very impressive. I still feel like INEOS got so much right with this very first Grenadier. It's not like, oh, we're the suckers and we're stuck with it. I think we're doing just fine. And the Grenadier is going to continue to be substantially like this. With a bad driver in front of us. You are not in a turn lane, sir. That's the big horn, not the toot horn. Yeah. It's funny. People say, why the Grenadier only goes 99 miles an hour. And I'm like, when have you been on the 405 where you could go 99 miles an hour? You buy a nice car, no matter how fast it goes, you're sitting in traffic if you're in California. Now, not true everywhere. that's my existence. Sports cars don't go any faster than Grenadiers when you're on the 405 freeway. So a lot going on. It's the time of year where for INEOS, in a couple of months, the 2025s are going to hit the shores, because they're starting to roll off the production line, and it takes them about 6 weeks to get over here and get through the process and start falling into dealers. And the dealers are madly working to clear up their 2024 unsold units, of which there are many. I'm going to do a separate video on that because somebody pointed it out, and I've done a previous video about slow sales and what's going on and so forth. And it's ready for a revisit, because it looks like there's still a lot of unsold inventory, and some of it's probably planned. But if the 2025s were here, I think it'd be a problem, bigger than it could currently be, because I think there are too many unsold 2024s. And again, I think it has a lot to do with they made guesses based on the original response and deposits and reservations. And it's really hard when you have no data to back it up, and that's your only data. You're like, okay, we're going to sell 10,000 of these, we're going to sell 20,000 of these, and then it comes out and it's a little more expensive, maybe a lot more expensive than they originally had hoped. And the people, that shook some of the buyers away, and then suddenly they have unsold units that maybe weren't configured well, because a lot of what I'm seeing available are base model Grenadiers that may have an option or two, but they're not smart options. Like, you buy a base Grenadier and you put a winch on it, but you don't put the front and rear lockers. Most off-road people are like, that's a non-starter. Who needs that? And so those kinds of things exist on dealer lots, and they're going to be the tougher sell, while people like me that go painstakingly through the order guide and say this equals this, I need a field master, but I want to add this and this and this. Those are the people who bought them and own them and are driving them because they had intention and they knew what they were doing. And some people were maybe speculators and just thought, I'll get a base Grenadier and so forth. And anyway, there's some unsold Grenadiers and they need to clear those out because the new ones are coming. And so it's a good time to get a good deal on a Grenadier, because I don't think that's going to be true forever. I think they're going to get that ship right-sided, and they're not going to make that mistake a second time. It just, they have to do some rebalancing. So I don't fault them for that. If anything, they were a little overzealous in their estimates. But what are you going to do? I mean, they're expanding their dealer network, because that's the only other problem that they really face, is getting more boots on the ground to service the Grenadiers, to sell the Grenadiers, to introduce people to the Grenadiers. Obviously, we're waiting to see how they promote and advertise the Grenadier, because we still have only seen that one ad on TV that you kind of see the Grenadier a little bit in the dark and so forth. It was a little too esoteric for me. And I think that the people who drive Grenadiers are the biggest adverts for them in the moment. And they're still really rare. I can be in San Diego. I might see one once a month. I'm up in LA, same kind of thing. You just don't see them a lot. And every time you do, it turns somebody's head. So it just tells me that a lot of people just don't know that it exists yet. And you can't want one if you don't know that it's out there for you to want. Oh, let's see. Other than that, I mean, the Grenadier's running fine, and I've missed getting in it. I got it washed. That's a chore. I don't do proper car washes. I don't drive my car through a car wash. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with that. And so I pay to have my car hand washed because I'm just that guy. But it's, takes a little time to have it done. and you know, showing a little love to my Grenadier, because it's one of those things that it's like, well, it's a car that you can let be dirty, because it, you know, that's kind of the nature of the car. But then you get to a certain point where you're like, no, the windows just can't see out of them. So another thing that a viewer alerted me to, and I just didn't know this, this is just a little factoid, is that inside the Grenadier, the only way to lock and unlock the doors is on the driver's side. There's a little place where there could be a button on the passenger side, but it's just a cover. And so you're the only person with supreme control over locking and unlocking the doors. But I also did a little test where I locked myself in the car, and it's like, well, can I get out of the car if I'm in the passenger seat? And the answer is yes. The doors will just simply unlatch and open. The rear ones, you pull once to unlock and you pull again to open. But the front door, it just opens as if it were unlocked. And then I also set the alarm while I was sitting in the car and opened the doors. And to my surprise, because I expected the alarm to just go squawking, it didn't. It just opens the car and you can get out. So I don't know if it's supposed to work like that, but that's how it's working. You basically open the car from the inside with the alarm set, and that door remains unlocked going forward. And I don't know if the alarm still remains set or has been disarmed. So I thought that was a little bit odd. But just something, you know, if you got a Grenadier, try it out, see what you think. Because that was my experience. And just know that you're, you know, even without the ability to unlock, people aren't trapped on at the other doors. And they're mechanical doors, they're not electronic doors, so you can't get trapped in the car like I've heard some people get trapped in others. So as you can see, my kind of drive running errands is a lot of stop and go city traffic. This is not a freeway day, but it gives me an excuse to record a little bit and talk about some stuff, and also just see how the car's running. And aside from that funny, weird start where it was just chiming off, I think you know, it's another one of those one-offs. I'll mention it to the dealer, and if they've heard of it or it's really something serious, they will have heard of it. But I just added to the quirk column of the Grenadier because we're doing fine. We're getting home. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and I'll keep you posted on some of the things that I'm researching, because I sometimes do videos from my desk and it's like, oh, this is probably boring people. And so, you know, occasionally we got to get out in the car. But some things are better, you know, said and researched from a fixed position. So anyway, I'm going to go. We'll see you soon. Bye.